I played some games in 2022, much like I usually do, but since I've left this channel as a wasteland, I figured it'd be an easy thing to write about and make a video, set the tone for the type of content I want to make going forward. What the hell is that? Is that a picture of a dick? Is it just a cock?
It's the map of
Oh, I thought it was just a girthy cock. Because in real life, when I get my own place, that's probably the first picture I'm going to put up. Since I'll be making videos in some of these games in the future, I might not go too in depth, but I want to make this an annual tradition, and the standard I like for these are games that I might want to talk about, but don't feel like or I just can't make a full video about. Anyway, thanks for sticking around. Here are 4 games that I played in 2022. I played a couple RPGs last year, something I always wanted to do, a genre I've always liked, but never had the time to complete them. Well, with my job as an editor coming to be a thing, and I now had a lot more free time to play games and shit, one of the ones I played was the first Final Fantasy, specifically the Pixel Remaster that's on Steam. I want to make a standalone video about this game because I have a couple things I want to say after researching it, but I'll say it was a really fun old school experience. It's rare that I can pick up a game and have its more simple nature show up, and that's not to say I'm a boomer that thinks all games after 2010 are dog shit. The original game's release date was more than 10 years before I spawn camped my own birth. But the game, even with its updated nature in terms of graphics, has a lot of the quirks left over from the NES that make it charming, but also can be really fucking annoying. It's also one of the first games I played on my Steam Deck when I got it. I kind of want to make a video about the Steam Deck itself, but instead of like this, it'd probably be more comedic in nature, so you never know what I can make up. Anyway, moving on to the next game. The big fucking game itself was quite the challenge. Not that it was difficult to play, the version on Steam is pretty seamless on controller. Also, it's Doom, I don't need to explain Doom. It kicks ass, the gore is awesome for the time, makes you feel like a badass, and the story is really polished for the time as well. And the music is absolutely iconic. But there's one thing I want to talk about, it's how fucking cryptic this game can be. Like, fuck me, I know this is a theme for older games, but it's usually something I associate with, like, the NES games, like Final Fantasy, like I talked about, especially overseas projects where the localization is the main issue, but this was made by fucking id Software. This was made in
Shreveport, Louisiana is just right.
There's this one level in particular where you have to wade through, like, toxic demon farts and shit, and I had to use a walkthrough on how to beat it, which sucks because I hate doing that. I want to beat the game on my own, but it just was fucking impossible. But I had no other choice if I wanted to beat the game or spend an hour brute forcing it. Maybe it has to do with something the class of visions Doom historically had, or the just general development that id Software had at the time. But most of that reportedly came down to an emphasis on story and lore building versus the showing of the mechanics of the legendary Doom engine. But that doesn't really pinpoint the culprit, though I must say the real culprit of bad things in the world are the movement and running mechanics in the game. It's hard to tell when and where you can climb over stuff, and Doom Guy runs like he ate an entire baseball worth of crack cocaine, so that doesn't help any much. Those things aside, I fucking loved Doom. It's the father of all FPSs after all, and most of those games inspired by or directly caused by Doom went on to dominate my early years in gaming. Just for all the fond memories, not even related to the game, I have to give Doom 2 Roger Ebert-sized thumbs up, but the game itself also was great. Unfortunately, that's not something I can do for the next game, and I hate getting negative, but I just have to get this next one off of my chest. Originally, the game I was going to talk about was Modern Warfare 2, which I did play a lot of. And I'd go over the new season announcement, that's how long this video has been in the works for there, and go over how, you know, I was not a fan of what was being announced on the season pass, but frankly at this point I just don't even really have the care to do that. I've frankly just been disappointed by Call of Duty the last couple of years. I know this one kind of reinvented stuff after Fall of Vanguard, which, you know, was an awful game, but I'm not going to give this game brownie points for Vanguard. I just don't understand their thought process by a lot of it. You know, a lot of the focus, of course, goes to Warzone, which makes sense. I personally don't like Battle Royals. I don't know why. That's its own separate entity. Why they rebooted Warzone into Warzone 2, which apparently people don't like. I have not done a lot of research because, again, I don't play the mode. I don't give a fuck. but that's just what I've heard off the cuff. And I just don't understand why their focus isn't on the multiplayer that made Call of Duty Call of Duty. And I think, with, just the season pass in general, there's only 2 multiplayer maps. They took, tier 1 or whatever the fuck they called it, and then renamed it back to hardcore and pretended like it's a whole new mode. They added ranked, which that's a actually good thing and needed to be done by the shithole community that the fucking Call of Duty community has just become. But it's just not enough. I just don't understand how you can especially charge $10 extra for this game and then have the balls to do that. And I don't mean like as a personal attack to the developers, but let's be realistic here. You look at the credits and look at the massive amount of people there, and you're telling me that I've seen indie games with more content. I know that's a common complaint, but like, what do you want me to say? I'm not going to defend, charging extra money and then giving me less content in the game that I paid for, instead focusing on the free-to-play thing. It's just not right, in my opinion. And that makes me relatively sad. I think FPSs in general are just not in a good state. Call of Duty had an open window, Halo shit the bed, Battlefield, they diarrheaed the bed. I don't even know what the fuck you call that release. If you do know of any FPSs that I'm missing and not talking about fairly, please let me know so, I can give them a fair shake. Because obviously I can't play every game, but regardless of that, I don't like being negative, but I just wanted to say this since I've been debating how to do this part of the video. Here's the 4th game that I played that I actually had a lot of fun. Please, I want you genuinely to give it a shot and play it yourself. Alright, I want you to right now take away the fandom and the Tumblr and the cringe of this game right now. That's what I thought when I jumped in this game. I thought it was going to be funny because of that. But when I booted up this game finally, that I just had installed for the past 7 years, I found one of my favorite gaming experiences I've ever had. That's a vague statement coming from me, by the way. If I play a game and I like it, I usually put it in the love category. But if someone were to tell me this was their favorite game of all time, I wouldn't agree with them on the choice, but I could see where they're coming from for sure. Surprisingly, the stories and the characters is what I love the most, especially the minor characters that you really only see a little bit now and then, but they're just always so funny to interact with. I've seen the quirky nature of this game kind of wear on people, but I think the thing separating Undertale from other RPGs is that this was the original that kind of did that. A lot have tried to follow in its footsteps, but also it's pretty straightforward. Once you exit the tutorial section, you're getting Jad jokes and other wholesome shit and no ifs, ands, buts about it. If you don't like it, that's a personal thing and you can quit and no one's gonna take you, any less seriously. The only character I really didn't like was Papyrus, who's probably the most quirky in the game and can be a little grating at times, but he doesn't overstay his welcome too much, and his battle's pretty fun. It's the first real big fight. I think it's a good stopping point if you don't like that kind of humor. If you play the game, you'll see what I mean when you get to it. Speaking of battles, they're probably the only real negative I have with the game, as they're designed to be explored in order to find solutions to these mini puzzles, and sometimes they're not as clear-cut as possible. And I know they're not the hardest thing in the world, but I'm a dumbass, so And I've started playing Deltarune, Undertale's sequel, quote-unquote, and this was fixed by limiting the actions you can do and having highlights the best options, except in rare cases. Also, despite the couple of endings, the game really doesn't have replay value. The only incentive to keep going is to basically go around the game, and I just don't think there's a lot there that makes me want to do that. The art, level design, fun puzzles, the atmosphere, all those level out though, and the music especially is some of my favorite in a game ever. The chiptune nature of most songs just really reminds me of growing up in the early 2000s, especially the minimalist art style as well. It's all just really fun. And when you combine that minimalist art style with these epic songs that start having instrumentals and stuff, it stands out as a cool juxtaposition, if you know what I mean. I highly recommend you just give this game a fair shake. I know it's asking a lot for some people, but just do it, and I think you'll be happy with it. That's why I don't even want to talk about much. I don't want to spoil it for you, so just go ahead and play Undertale. It doesn't even cost that much, goddammit.